Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 23 of Neon Genesis Evangelion Director's Cut. Wow, we have 3 episodes left. 23, well no, we have 4. 23, 24, 25, and 26. We have 4 episodes left. We have 3 left until the finale. A month left of series and then all the movies to come afterwards, which will surely not break me at all. But I have a lot of comments about episodes 20 and 21. Episode 22 is coming out tomorrow. I had already put like a page and a half of notes, and I had to record this episode before episode 22 comes out on Patreon and before 21 comes out on YouTube, because once like the floodgates open, y'all have so many awesome comments, and I'm like, nope, I just need to go ahead and do episode 23 tonight. And then once we get comments for 22 and 21, I'll incorporate them in episode 24. But yeah, I'm wearing red to support, I know it's a Fooly Cooley Scott Pilgrim crossover, but I'm doing it to support Asuka, who last episode went through the ringer. I'm supporting our girl Asuka with the red hair and the red shirt to support her, because she went through the ringer and had a pretty rough episode, and it did not end well. She was screaming that she hated everybody and just having a major crisis. So hopefully this will send some good vibes to our girl Asuka for this episode. But as I talked about in the little mini recap at the end of the last episode, I feel like each of these episodes are following a phase of Freud's psychosexual development. And last episode was more about the anal phase. And so I think it embodied it pretty well. I will say that I don't know if this episode, I thought about this afterwards, like I don't know if maybe there'll be 2 episodes that tie to one aspect. Like you could argue episodes 20 and 21 tie to the oral stage, and maybe this episode will tie to the anal stage as well, or it will go into the phallic stage. And the phallic stage, as we talked about in the last discussion of Freud's psychosexual development, deals with penis envy, deals with men with castration anxiety, deals with feelings of inadequacy based on gender, and also deals with the possible aspect that a male could become jealous of their father over the love of a mother. Can't imagine we have characters that would be in that situation in this show, so... But yeah, so who knows what's going to happen, but I'm going to be curious to see if this follows along that same line. If we get more into the anal stage with, like we did with Asuka in this episode, if we follow up with her, or if we're going to focus on a different character. So we'll see, right? But I've got a lot of comments to get through, so this is probably going to be a long intro. Y'all know this is coming. So Simon Lemon pointed out the directors Hiroyuki Ishida and Shunji Suzuki went on to direct other things. Ishido actually went on to direct End of Evangelion, Fooly Cooley, which is kind of tied to this, and then as well as Code Geass, and then came back for the Rebuild movie. So that's cool that the original director of episode 20 or 21 came back to direct one of the films like 20 years later. That's incredible. I love that. GSMD noted for episode 21 that when Misato was crying at the table, her arms were making a cross. And I was like, they are! I was like, that's so good. After Kaji's death. And it's similar to Gendo's in that same episode, where we see the shadow of the cross after Yui's death. So I wondered if it was a sign that both Misato and Gendo, in light of losing the one that they love, decide to take it upon themselves to have their crosses to bear. And Shinji could be, and that's kind of the connection between them. But also that Shinji could be relating to his feeling of helplessness and his inability to both comfort Misato, just like he was able to comfort his father Gendo when his mom died. And I like that GSMD pointed out that, yeah, Shinji was a kid when his mom died, but there's still that sense of, oh, later on you feel I could have done more back then. Why didn't I? And it's just kind of like that guilt that surfaces. So I like the idea of that. And that kind of ties to chapter or episode 21's title, He Was Still a Child. Still a child. Like was a child back then, is still one now. So it's kind of connecting Gendo and Yui to Kaji and Misato, and then Shinji's relationship with both of those traumatic incidents. That was really neat. I liked that. Nicholas B. in the Discord, when we were talking about this in the Discord after episode 21, 22, talked about how Asuka is in denial of Kaji's death. And I was like, oh, that's exactly like Shinji being in denial about Toji being the 4th child. There was a lot of comparisons in the last episode to Asuka and Shinji, and that was one of them that came out that was pretty neat. Bernard Black and Jack King both commented how Shinji was in civilian clothes when he got up in the Eva in episode 21, and then he's just randomly in the plug suit when he's in the primordial suit. But I'm like, you know what? If that's a continuity error, I'm fine with it. It was close to the deadline. They just said, roll with it. We'll put in some BS explanation for it. Roll on. I'm like, let's move out. Transformers roll out. I'm like, I'm fine with that. But that was funny to note. I didn't notice that in the discussion. Bright Girl commented how there are past moments where, in the repetition, where Asuka, we have the 4 moments where she's like, this isn't me. And it's her saying like, hi, I'm Asuka Langley. And when she's like, oh, Chance, and saying like, and she's trying to like expose herself to Kaji. It's repeated 4 different times. And I didn't realize this, but Bright Girl's like, go back and listen. It's different voice actresses each turn. None of them are Asuka's voice actress. And I was like, oh, no. When you go back and listen, like as soon as I saw that in the Discord, I went back and listened to it. And it was after I'd already recorded the discussion. But it was, it's Misato's voice actress, REI's voice actress, Maya's voice actress, Ritsuko's voice actress, and then even Hikari's voice actress, the school reps. None of them are Asuka, but they're all the different people saying those lines. So when she says that thing where she's like, this isn't me, it literally is true. It's not her talking. It's someone else speaking for her. And it's like, oh, that's so cool. So yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Nicholas B. and Bright Girl both were talking about how Misato showing a little favoritism towards Shinji and maybe neglecting Asuka that we've seen throughout this entire series. And I was like, yeah, Misato she's shown favoritism to Shinji like this whole time, because I think Misato relates to Shinji and she connects to him. So of course, even if it's subconscious, she is favoring him a little bit more than Asuka. I do feel like she connects a little bit to Asuka and kind of knows where Asuka's coming from. Like when she hears her outside of the bathroom in the last episode screaming, Misato's kind of like all too knowingly knows what's going on. So, but it's interesting that they noted that. And yeah, it's kind of sad because like Nicholas B. and Bright Girl pointed out, Misato knows Asuka's backstory. She knows how troubled she is, but she doesn't quite do enough. And so I'm like, I don't know if maybe Misato is just like, she figures out that Asuka's just going to withdraw even more. It's the hedgehog dilemma. She's just going to like retreat even further if she tries to reach out. So instead she just ignores. But that even connects her even more to Shinji, because it's like when Shinji didn't comfort Misato over Kaji's death, he just kind of retreated being like, oh, I don't make matters worse, so I'll just back off. And that's kind of what Misato's done with Asuka, for better or worse, even though just like Misato really needed somebody to comfort her at Kaji's death, Asuka really needs somebody to connect with her, as we've seen in this last episode. So there's that. Jimmy Russell and Alex Cornejo talked about how in episode 20, the red light, there's a red light and blue light in the water. The red light could refer to Misato and the blue light is to Yui, as to which one Shinji goes to when he chooses to go back into the real world. He picked Misato. Nicholas B. also talked about how Anno could be obsessed with the number 3 as a creator because Neon Genesis is his third project after Gunbuster, Nadai, and then Eva. And that page in episode 21 where I was like, is this just bullshit? Everybody was like, no, that's just the history of Gainax that they put on the page. I was like, oh, that's cool. I was just like, what is this? And no, that all makes sense now. Alex Cornejo talks about how Shinji and Gendo, they seem to kiss with their eyes open, which is awkward, but notes that Shinji, when he was first kissing Asuka, did close his eyes. He did close his eyes, but she held his nose, and then he like had to open his eyes in surprise and kept them open. Gendo never closed his eyes, for all we know. So there is that. Shinji might be a little bit more adept than Gendo. Christopher Peterson talked about how you can't save the world with a clean hand. And I was like, oh, that connects to so many series, but especially to Gendo and Shinji, the idea that you're not going to save anybody unless you get your hands dirty. It's like, oof. Daniel Contreras noted that Fuyu-chan may have liked Yui. So, and does that affect how we should take his memories at face value? And I was like, yeah, this series has slowly revealed over time, especially with the last episode when Misato like reveals the whole thing about the third impact that apparently isn't entirely right. The idea that there are unreliable narrators in this story, that this story, we can't take everything at face value, not only because of psychologically how messed up it is and how abstract it's getting, but the fact that the memories of certain characters are affecting the way that we think about things. And so, yeah, that was a really cool thing to point out, Daniel, because Fuyu-chan, if he likes Yui, maybe the way he sees her is different than how Yui's that whole conversation where he's like, I don't know why you like Gendo. And she's like, oh, well, you just don't see him the way I do. It's like that whole thing about perspective. So we've not had an episode from Gendo's perspective, which is intentional, I feel. So that was really interesting. I'm like, yeah, maybe we can't trust Fuyu-chan. Maybe the flashback we're seeing from his perspective is a little skewed and a little biased. It's like, I like it. Gendo, in earlier poses, when he was doing like the maniacal pose, did not have his mouth covered. And Daniel Contreras noted that it could be maybe as he's moving forward, he's struggling more and more with his decisions, and he covers up the face so we can't see the true him even more. But yeah, we haven't gotten a point of view episode on him yet. I'm waiting for a Gendo-centered episode. I'm waiting for episode 25 to be just from Gendo's perspective. That would be insanity, and I'd be here for it. The penultimate season, episode before the season finale is all from Gendo's point of view. I'd be here for it, and it would tie in because it would be around the time of the latent stage. So if we tied into Gendo and him not growing up or changing, that'd be interesting. We'll see how that goes. Ritsuko dyeing her hair. These are also Daniel Contreras. You had a lot of really good comments in this one. Ritsuko dyeing her hair to differentiate herself from her mom. I was like, oh yeah, because she has commented throughout the series. She's like, oh yeah, my mom's the famous scientist. So it's like, on the one hand, Ritsuko wanted to make herself her own person and not be known just by her family legacy, even though we've seen that didn't exactly work out. But also knowing her mom having the affair with Gendo, she's probably like, I don't want to associate myself with that type of woman that my mom is. And I'm like, because she very well could have done the same thing to Misato and got up all on Kaji, right? And that makes more sense too. If she had been like her mother, she could have despised Misato, and maybe she does. We don't know. But she could have despised Misato for having that relationship with Kaji and tried to have an affair with him. But every scene we've seen with her and Kaji, she has backed away and not pursued him sexually. So I'm like, cool. There she is trying to difference herself. This part got me that Girin, nerve, and SEELE is really brain, nerve, and soul. Makes sense. Haha, fitting. Very fitting. But the soul comes first. So SEELE comes first. I'm like, SEELE's considered the most important, right? But Gendo is nerve. So interesting. Bright Girl pointed out that at one point, in the psychoanalysis breakdown of Asuka, you can see eyes in the brainwave chart. You can. I went back and looked at it. I'll put a picture up here. It's the creepiest shit in the world. There are eyes in the brainwave chart. I was like, who last episode was pretty freaky. The imagery was scary. I'm easily scared. I was alone in my house for reasons, but I was like, this is terrifying. And I was like, nope, not having it. So there was that. And then finally, I have 2 more comments, and then we're only at 13 minutes. We're doing great. But Jimmy Russell talked about how Kaji in episode 20 hinted that he was fired by the Japanese government with the dialogue that was happening, and that Kaji may have been seemingly more interested in Gendo's script than SEELE's, and that's why he stuck around. It's like curiosity killed the cat, my dude. I hate that for him. I hate that Kaji's dead. But also the idea that I know of Watchmen. I've not read Watchmen, but I know about it. I know what it's about. But Jimmy Russell compared Shinji being kind of reborn from the primordial soup, kind of to being like Dr. Manhattan in Watchmen, reconstructing himself. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I like that. But also, I really like this, Jimmy, that this conversation about, because there was a lot of sexual elements with breasts in the last episode. Not necessarily sexual, but breasts and sexual maturity was a focus with Asuka. And I liked how you phrased this, saying that breasts, they develop as erotic as possible to accomplish the most innocent of functions. They're literally, breasts are for sexual attraction, but they have a very asexual purpose, which is just to nurse a baby. So it's like they're a literal contradiction. And I feel like Asuka in the last episode is a literal contradiction. Like, she is trying to grow up super fast, but the whole point of her growing up super fast is not for what she thinks. And so it was really good. I like that you phrased it that way. That was a really good comment to make. And then finally, Melania the Severed noted that Gendo's surname, Rukubungi, means sextant in Japanese, and it's not what you think. Get your minds out the gutters. Sextant is a measuring device that uses to measure angles, especially when you're measuring altitudes and navigation. I was like, oh, a very scientific surname for a very scientific individual. So that only took 15 minutes. I'm going to call that a success. So yeah, episode 23, down to the final 4. What is this series going to give us? I don't know, but it's 25 minutes long. Not as long as the last 2, so I'm like, okay. All right, Neon Genesis, you're chilling out a little bit, maybe. But we're going to find out what's going to happen in episode 23 of Neon Genesis Evangelion and just find out. So we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do this. Huh. I don't think this is the WTF moment. I don't think, if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you, like, since I started the series, my brother has been so patient with me and has not spoiled anything. All he has told me is that there will come a moment where I will text him, WTF, what is going on? And I will freak out. And I thought about, as the end credits were rolling, I was like, is this that moment? But you know what? This series has been so batshit and bonkers that this episode, I kind of felt like Shinji in it. I felt like whatever happens, happens. I guess we're just going to roll with this. Shinji was weird this episode. This was a weird episode. And I don't know how to feel about it. I don't think I'm as crazy about it as 21 and 22. 21 and 22 have been my jam. 21's been my jam. Like the lore, the flashback, the backstory, like that was my jam. 22 was like the psychological bonkers WTF moments. But this was like, we're finally, it felt not rushed, but it felt like things were just like, here's all this stuff at once. And I'm like, whoa, we've taken our sweet time for 22 episodes to build up on this. And now you've decided that in the 11th hour, you're going to throw all this stuff at us. And Anno's like, yes. So I'm like, why? Oh, where do we start? Picking red was a great choice, apparently, even though it's Rei's least favorite color. Imagine that. Wow, we figure out what's up with REI, kind of. But there's a lot of stuff to break down. I feel like when I was watching the episode, I was like, this is going by really quickly. They're throwing a lot of information at us. We're going to need to break it down. What's happening? And now I feel like I'm going to need to break this episode down. I'm glad we get the OP back. They were like, you're going to need this. You're going to need this OP, let me tell you. God. So, starting back, this idea of, God, Misato. So, we've got a lot of different players on the field here. REI is the center of this. We had Asuka was the center of the last episode, and REI is the center of this episode. But it's so odd. We need to break this down. So, for the record, I still think that we are in the anal stage. I do not think we've moved on to the phallic stage at all. I think we're still in the anal stage of Freud's psychosexual development that talks about controlling one's bodily functions. And I might change my mind as we go. Control of and leading to independence. I'm going to say, yeah, leading to independence and accomplishment. I'm going to say that we are still in the anal phase in this episode. I'm going to say that we are because, and the reason I say that is because not only did REI take some initiative and control her fate and her own response throughout this episode, but Akagi did as well. Akagi making the choice to kill all the other REIs. I was like, so there are clones. Great, there are clones of REI. Good. We got that cemented, or at least somewhat clones of REI. Now, where these original clones for REI came from, we're going to go back to the episode and see if I was so flabbergasted at this point and like, okay, that of all the imagery they were throwing at us that I probably didn't pay enough attention to the dialogue, so we're going to go back through it. But yeah, so in this case, we have both Akagi getting, we'll put Ritsuko up here. Akagi getting a sense of independence, and then good old REI And we'll talk about Asuka and the others too, but oh my god, this just... I felt like Shinji. I felt numb. I felt like in shock. Like the emotions are just like, what do I do with, how do I process this? I guess the big thing is processing it. Trying to process what we just witnessed and be like, okay, let's break it down. I'm going to put Misato on this marker. Sad days. The dark red marker is no more. We're going to put Misato in pink over here. Put Misato in pink over there. And then I'm going to put Shinji. We'll put Shinji. You know what? I don't know about this yet because our male characters might all have to get lumped together. But I'm going to put Asuka up here because we do have Asuka and Hikari, which I really liked that scene. We'll talk more about it. I really liked that scene, but we'll get into it. So Katsuragi, just her listening through the voicemail over and over again, which we find out later there is a tie to the clue that Kaji left her on how I'm deciphering the chip inside the pill. That's what, it wasn't a message. I was thinking of Banana Fish. There's a scene in Banana Fish where there's a little message tied up in a pill that a character gives another character, and that's what I thought this was. No, it's a chip that has information that Misato has used to catch up with Ritsuko. But she is still mourning Kaji and deciphering his death. I do like how the concept of grief is explored in this episode, because that's one thing when we get to it, especially when we think, for a second I was like, is Rei dead? Are they going to try to bring her back? Which they do. I'm like, what's going on with Rei? And when we talk about Shinji's grief with it, we'll go back to it. But Misato, everything is just in disarray. The trash is overflowing. She's not keeping up with anything. Everything's disgusting. She's just going through the motions, just drinking the coffee. It's the same routine over and over again, but she's not cleaning up after herself. It's disgusting. And she's just wallowing in this state and just going back over and over again where Shinji knows where it is. The truth is with you. Go forward without any hesitation. Which is funny because in this moment, she's clearly been going through this routine for at least a week because we've seen that many containers. So it's like he tells her to move forward without hesitation, but yet she's stagnant and stuck in the same spot. So she's not taking his advice, right? Which she ends up doing so by the end of this episode, which I'm glad. I'm glad Misato's taking some initiative. I honestly thought by this point, if I'm being entirely honest, I thought in this episode either Akagi or Misato were going to die. I really thought one of them was going to die in this episode by the end of it. I thought Akagi was either going to take her own life, or she was going to try to kill Misato, or Misato was going to kill Akagi. But the moment that Shinji was there, I was like, oh, they're not going to do this in front of Shinji. Nah, if it had just been the two of them, I think somebody would have died. But the fact that Shinji was there was like just enough of a buffer. I was like, okay, so maybe they're not going to die in this episode, but things do not bode well for either of them. We'll talk about it in this discussion. But her just being like, the phone that won't ring. So that's funny. Yeah, the phone that won't ring. Or I'll talk about the woman that never bleeds. That's Rei. Rei is, she goes back to that poem that we talked about way back in the day. The woman who never bleeds. She can't die because there's so many of her. Rei can just die over and over again. She just keeps going back into the same status tube. The same one. It's just been her, the Akagi, the one that Akagi killed. Just replace her. She's replaceable just like I am. Oh, it's all just, it's just getting good. Sci-fi goodness. So yeah, poor Shinji and Pinpin. Shinji and Pinpin. Misato's cooped up and Asuka doesn't want anybody else, so Shinji's just all by himself with Pinpin. There's this concept of, I'll put this up here, this concept of loneliness. This concept of loneliness that's explored throughout this episode, that these characters are all, it's funny, there's, just like the Rei clones, there are so many of them, but they're all alone. They're not together. And so it's an interesting commentary on that, right? But even there's so much, the color red is, with the exception of the nighttime scenes at different people's houses, the color red and orange is so prevalent in this episode. It's like my subconscious was telling me to wear red. I was like, man, this is really on the nose. Which I was wearing it for Asuka, but it works out for Rei in this episode too. But they're even like Shinji's shorts are red, Pin's eyebrows are red. There's like red colors throughout the series, like in every little nook and cranny. But yeah, so we have at Hikari's house, we go to Hikari's house. That's where Asuka's hanging out. And we have this like CD that says Winning Fighter on it. And then we have Puyo Puyo, which is this little CD, and Saturn 2. They have all the Sega controllers. It's great. I love it. The little Sega controllers. It's such a callback. Very, very 90s. But they're sitting there. And it's like she was learning the game and playing it. Right? And then I like that Hikari has the very traditional like pajamas. And then Asuka's just wearing what she normally would wear. She won't go to school and she won't go back home. Which is saying something, that she values Hikari's place. Hikari's place is a sanctuary. She just keeps playing games. Like, it's just a distraction, right? And she's like, want to go sleep. The way that Asuka talks in this episode was so like meek and just mousy. It was very unlike anything that we've heard her speak like before, but she's at her lowest point, right? So her form of grief, it's like she's isolated, but she's with Hikari. She like doesn't want to talk to anybody. She just wants to sit and play games. She doesn't want to think about anything. And Hikari's nice and lets her stay there. But Hikari's she's really good in this scene. Even her pajamas are pink, so it's like a form of red. I like the digital effect of the TV turning off. Like, it's a Sega CD system. It's great. But she has like her bag there, Asuka's bag, like she has intended to stay for a while. And then we have like the magazine. Like, Hikari's room is very, very neat and orderly, right? And now how Hikari like sleeps with her feet out from under the blanket is interesting. But Asuka says, "Am I a bother?" She's like, "No." And so she's like, Asuka feels like she's freeloading. She's like, "I wasn't able to win in my Eva. I'm not worth anything anymore. Not anywhere." I love Hikari with her hair down. Like, it's so beautiful. Like, she's so pretty. But yeah, but Hikari doesn't say anything. She's like, "I hate it. I hate it all. I hate everyone." Like what she basically told Shinji. But what I hate the most is myself. So her being able to say that in front of Hikari. And Hikari, she's like, somehow I feel like nothing matters. Hikari lets her talk. She just sits there and listens. And when she says that nothing else matters anymore, she listens to that and she says, "I think it's okay for you to do whatever you want and I won't say anything." She's like, "It's okay if you feel worthless. It's okay if you want to yell." She's like, "I think you did your best." Like, that's honestly, Hikari's such a good friend because she basically just says, like, she listens. She listens and tells Asuka she did her best. And she is there to support. Thank goodness. I guess the one, it's not really a silver lining because later we see Asuka and she's miserable. So it's not really a silver lining. But the one good thing about this entire scene is that Hikari is there for her. And she listens. She doesn't try to tell Asuka how she should feel. She doesn't try to tell her, "Oh, well, you should just, don't worry about that," or "You're a great pilot," or she doesn't. She's like, no matter what you feel, you can think however you want to about yourself. Just know that I think you did your best. So I'm here to support you. Like, I'm here for you. Like, that's all she can do, right? And that's, I think, what Asuka wants. And she kind of like curls up and starts to cry because that's kind of that support that she needs. And Hikari just lets her cry. And so I'm glad Hikari, our class rep, is there for her. I'm glad that she's there supporting her, being kind, which is something that Toji would have done. And I think that that's why her and Toji are they would make a great couple if Toji could get out of the hospital. Make a great couple. I think her and Toji would be perfect because she has that same kindness. And it's almost as if Hikari takes from example, like she wants to be kind like Toji is. So she practices that with Asuka. And it's like, it's great. So I did like that scene a lot. Asuka's still miserable later, and we'll talk about that. But so they got the pyramid rebuilt. There's the sea and everything. Why not? I see, so she passed away. Man, Akagi's just been smoking up a chimney. She passed away. Yeah, even cats eventually reach the end of their lives. So Akagi has not had a great day. Akagi's day has been pretty sad. Her cat died. Her cat died that her grandfather was watching. I'm going to move this over so you can see. There we go. I can see a little bit better. Yeah. Her cat dies, which is sad, but it seems like her grandpa was watching it. Saying, don't cry anymore, Grandma. Don't cry, Grandma. So her grandma was watching it, and her grandma's sad that the cat died. I love the composition of this entire scene. The desk lighting of Akagi's desk, the shadows and everything. There's just something very creepy and not ethereal, but just something kind of like that fluorescent light and everything. It's just something foreboding about it. And I love the way that the lighting and shadows work in this scene. And it happens later on, we see her again, like all the shadows around Akagi in this episode, which is funny. We have Rei and Akagi tied together in an episode because we've talked this entire series about how like Misato and Shinji have been similar, Kaji and Asuka have been similar, and now we have Rei and Akagi have seemed similar. So it's funny we have an episode that's devoted primarily to them. It's a fun time. But yeah, when I get some time, I'll come home for a bit. I honestly, she said, I haven't visited Mother's grave in 3 years either. So when she said that she'll come home for a bit, I was like, is Akagi going to die in this episode? Because that seems like whenever a character's like, oh, don't worry, I'll come home, don't worry. I'm like, are you? But she said she hadn't visited her mom's grave. It had been 3 years since her mother's grave, which was around the last time Shinji and Gendo talked to each other. So there's that connection. The timeline is all kind of around this last time she saw her mom's grave was around the time that Shinji left Gendo. So the timeline's sort of syncing up there, right? Interesting. I'll call you next time. When she said that, I was like, or you'll die in this episode. But luckily she doesn't. So that's good. Said, so she died. And she has the 2 little cat figurines that Kaji gave her. And there's one thing that says Patch, ICPIP, Ichi Ichi, Una. I wonder if those are like titles from that studio or something. Tears. The concept of tears, and the other title was Rei 3. Threes! The threes strike again. The third part of Rei's journey. God, tears. Okay. So yeah, the Lance of Longinus. I just love the Simon Says Council is like, this was amazing. This Fuyu-chan was only there briefly in this episode, but he was MVP of this meeting. So the Simon Says committee is not happy because the Lance of Longinus is gone. It's, why did you use it? We still do not have the planned number of the Eva series. And he's like, I made destroying the angel my first priority. So let's put Gendo over here. I'm going to put Gendo over here. So at this point, Gendo, he's lost the Lance of Longinus. I'm going to put Gendo and Lore right here because we got quite a bit dumped throughout this. So the Lance of Longinus is lost. It was needed to fight the angel. I'm like, did Gendo just want to get rid of it? And they're like, I made destroying the angel my first priority. It was an unavoidable situation. For some reason, one of the voices of one of the SEELE tablets seems to be the voice of Zeke, the voice of Dio, the one that's the guy with long hair in the manager in the officer station. It's his voice actor too. You could tell because his voice is so distinct. You should make your excuses more convincing than that. They're like, yeah, that's bullshit. Yeah, your actions have become intolerable. And I just love this favorite part is like in the middle of this meeting, a red phone by and by. Gendo's like, yeah, Fuyu, oh, I'm needed. Oh, sorry, I gotta leave the meeting, guys. It is like a classic move. It's a classic move, and I laughed so hard because I had a coworker once that was really not a pleasant person and not fun to talk to, and they were constantly like just mansplaining and being the worst person. And they would come by and talk to me at my office, and they wouldn't just come by and just say something for 5 minutes. It would be like an hour-long conversation, and you're trying to get stuff done. And you're like, and they're not picking up the social cue that you really need to get back to work. And so one day, one of my coworkers, my phone rang and my coworker was like, oh, I need you to come over here and get this from me. And I was like, okay, cool. And so I told them goodbye, went to my coworker, and I was like, what'd you need? And they're like, oh no, I just need to get you away from him. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, great, thanks. Thanks, friend. So that is exactly what Fuyu-chan just did. Fuyu-chan just did Gendo a solid and was like, hey, you need to get out here. And he's like, we're in the middle of deliberations, Fuyutsuki. And then I like that there is an angel attack. There is an angel attack. This freaky thing is out in the middle of Tokyo 3. And Gendo's just like, okay. Like just the most emotionless response. He's like, oh, all right. Like, sorry, just sorry, the house is burning down. I've got to go. An angel is currently drawing near. Like that's it. Like, let's continue this at another time. And they're like, and SEELE doesn't seem worried about it. They just say, if your seat is still waiting for you, that is. So I'm fascinated by Ikari's connection to SEELE, because it seems like he got connected to SEELE because of Yui, but I still think there's going to be an episode that's from Gendo's point of view, and maybe it'll be in a movie, maybe it'll be something else, I don't know, but I want to see something from Gendo's perspective, and maybe we'll get to that point. But I love when the one SEELE thing is like, Ikari, does he intend to betray SEELE? I'm like, oh honey, we're already past that. It's like, are you sure? Are you sure that you don't want to, maybe think about that a little bit? So would and is Gendo betraying SEELE? The answer is yes. The answer is yeah. Gendo has his own script. He is not performing what you think. So, and so I was like, I'll be there in 15 minutes. Launch number 0 unit from 00 from 32. Send O2 as a backup. Commander Ikari's orders will stand for Unit 1. I don't have the authority to lift the suspension on it. And this thing's just a halo. It's the freakiest thing. Okay. Oh my gosh. And we see Rei go up first. Okay, so I missed that in the episode. She went up at the current location. And they're like, launch. So, Gendo also views Asuka as expendable. He views Asuka completely as expendable. He's like, it doesn't matter. She can serve as a decoy. I'm like, Gendo does not care if Asuka dies. And the thing of it is, that's disturbing about that is that the funny thing is that he seems protective of Rei. Gendo has always seemed protective of Rei, but there are dozens of her. So he's always been protective of her, but there's like copies of her everywhere. But with Asuka, there is one Asuka, and he doesn't care if she dies. It's like, But Rei, now, even though we've got like 20 copies in the basement, we need to keep her safe. But I'm like, that floors me that he sees Asuka as completely expendable, that she could die and it's okay. But with Rei, even though we know he had copies of her, he was so protective of her. It's crazy. And so they're like, okay. And so they prepare her to launch, and Asuka's just done. She's like, here I am shamelessly back in the pilot seat. Asuka's just over it. She is just mentally done. And the sad thing is, she is in a place that Shinji was in, like, not a crazy long time ago in this series. Shinji's been in the exact same boat Asuka has been, but with Shinji, he was kind of introverted, and so he didn't outwardly express it as well. So we, the audience, had to kind of piece together that Shinji was feeling this way. Asuka just flat out says it. She's just like, I'm done. Like, she doesn't even try to hide it. It's so noticeable how she is in this. I'm bad at letting things go. So yeah, she's like, I'm just bad at leaving things. I'll only be in the way if I go out there. So even she knows, she's like, I can't do anything. So the Gora final line of defense, she's like, I don't care. Like, man, these SEAL guys want to launch like 8 units of EVA pilots. I'm like, we've seen how great the EVA pilots are functioning, so we should definitely make more of them. This angel has a really cool design. Like, this angel is probably the freakiest one of the freakiest ones, because it's so bizarre. It just doesn't really have a shape. It's just literally a halo of light. It's a halo of light, and then each of the rings of the halo is like an infinity. So it's just like around in a circle. It's kind of the creepiest thing. And then it like, I'm sorry, but again, parasites, anything parasitic is disgusting and I hate it. And so the idea and concept of something crawling into your skin and taking over your body is the most disgusting thing. So was not having this episode. I was like, nope. Mm-mm. And so over Owakudani. Okay. And then Misato, she's like, what were you doing? She's like, I'm not going to waste time on excuses. I like Misato's like, sorry, I was at home listening to my dead boyfriend's voicemail, trying to decipher stuff to bring you all down. How can I help? Misato, we're in a deadlock. And we're pattering cycling from blue to orange, meaning that it hasn't taken the Magi doesn't know what to do. The Magi can't decipher it. It hasn't taken a shape. We don't have enough data to come to an answer, so we need to wait until, Akagi said it hasn't formed a fixed form, which it tries to through the EVA unit. It's blood type blue. It tries to form a shape, but they have to wait on it to make a move. And they tell Rei to wait, and Rei's like, no, it's coming. And then it just all the patterns, it just slowly becomes this noodle that goes to infiltrate and get inside of the EVA unit. And it pierces the AT field. And she grabs it to start shooting it, but it's getting inside of her. Ugh. Nope, it's in physical contact. And then it just completely destroys the AT field. And this is the first angel, like when Shinji fell into the 12th angel or the 11th angel, he got absorbed by it. But it didn't exactly, the angel making contact with Shinji, if that was what happened, was very, very, it faded and slowly creeped into the system. This is forcing itself in, and it's much more visceral, much more disturbing. It's aggressively seeking to make first contact. Ugh. Gross. And it's just the idea of it crawling into not only the EVA but into, because it's gotten in through, because what we see of Rei inside the EVA plug is she's in that fluid. We can't see the fluid because it's all psychosomatic, and so it's inside the fluid and it's getting into her suit. Nope, I don't like it. And her blushing because it's violating her. Nope. So abdomen, biological inner size, pelvis, torso, everything's going in danger. It's invading her organic parts. Nope. And Misato's like, well, then let's get Asuka out there to do something. But Asuka doesn't do shit. No. And so I hate that. And Akagi's like, this is dangerous. 5% has been biologically fused. Ugh, no. Nope. And so Asuka shows up. And it's such a stark contrast from every time we've seen Asuka enter the field. She's been gung-ho, there's been the battle music, she reaches for her pistol and goes off to fight the angel, and she don't do any of that here. They're like, you need to close the distance, you need to deploy your AT field, here's your guns, ready to go. She doesn't do a damn thing. The sync rate's off, and she can't function. They're like, her sync rate is in the single digits. And she's just sitting there and that's the saddest, most pitiful thing, is she's just sitting there pushing against the machine and nothing is happening. She's just just squeezing it, and it's just, it won't move. They're like, she's a sitting duck. And I like that Misato was like, get her out of there. Again, we're going to tie back to Misato and her difference from Gendo. Misato showed concern and worry for Asuka and her safety. Gendo was like, just send her out there, she'll be fine. If she dies, she dies. So I like that Misato, that we have that contrast. And they're like, get her out of there. Ugh. It's just, I hate that. I hate that it's trying to take control of her. And then it gets into her brain and says, who's there? And she's like, me. The me inside the EVA. And so we see the red squiggles, the red squiggle lines. Again, red squiggles. No, I can sense that there's someone other than me. So I want to see what some of these images were. Okay. I want to see what some of them were. They seem like they're just her and her naked. an angel, the person that we call an angel. And the angel we see, and it says, won't you become one with me? Won't you become one? Like that, all it seems to want is to become one. He said, and she says, no, I am me, I am not you. So it seems like the angel wants to bond with the human. It wants to have contact. It wants to bond. And Ray's like, no, you're your own person. I'm my own person. We're not going to need to do any fusion dances anytime soon. No. I mean, I like the angel submerged. I see, but it's no use. It's too late now. Like it's already, like that process is already happening. I'll share what's in my heart with you. I'll share this feeling with you. Doesn't it hurt? See, doesn't your heart ache? So interesting. So the angel talks about a heartache. The angel talks about heartache, which is interesting that this angel is talking to her, and it's like submerged. And I love that it's the LCL fluids. It's the orange with the red background. Again, all the things that Asuka hates. Hurt, you're wrong. It's loneliness. Yes, it's loneliness, isn't it? And they're like, I don't understand. You hate being alone, don't you? There are so many of us, and yet you hate being alone. So, which that line is weird, because you would think the line should be, there are so many of us, and yet you like being alone, right? That would make sense if you said there are so many of us, yet you like being alone. Like you have all these people around you, but you don't want to have anything to do with them. To say there are so many of us, and yet you hate being alone, is that implying that the angel's like, well, you hate being alone, but there's all of us. Why don't you come hang out with the angels? Maybe that's what it's saying. Or are the angels and humans, is it suggested that they're both lonely? Maybe. But yeah, the angel's saying, well, you could be with us if you hate being alone. And that is what loneliness is. Oh, so they're saying that there's so many of us, and yet you hate being alone. Like you can't help it. There's people everywhere, but you can't interact with any of them. You're stuck, isolated. That is loneliness. Oh, that's what's inside your heart, is just loneliness. That is your heart overflowing with sorrow. So inside of Ray's heart is sorrow and loneliness, supposedly. Which, yeah, we've seen that kind of exemplified by her this entire series. She's been all by herself and hasn't been able to connect. But then there's a drop of water, and it's tears. So yeah, so the idea of tears and crying and having a soul. The idea that she is, and that she is alive. Because yeah, that's been the whole thing with Rei, this entire series, from Asuka, from others, is that she's been called a puppet, she's been called a doll, she's been called just like an inanimate object Gendo's used. Like she's just been referred to anything but a living human being. And the concept of her crying is her proving that she has a soul, that she does have something inside of her that can well up with these emotions, that she is alive. Like that expression of emotion is proving that she's in control of her bodily functions. She can handle her emotions and she understands them. And it's like, yes. Yeah, what are these tears? The one crying is me. And that gives her strength. But then out of the back of her comes whatever the hell this is. And it looks like there's like a pincer coming out of it. There's another shape. There's ribbons. Like what? There's something with eyes. It looks like something off a damn Soul Eater. Is what it looks like. It looks like a big monstrous carrot. It looks like a ghostly carrot is what comes out of her back of the Eva unit. And at that point, Misato's like, the fudge. And Gendo's like, we're getting Shinji out there now. Like at that point, Gendo's like, well, this has gotten out of hand. We need to get Shinji out of there. And so send him out immediately. And Misato's like, and he says, send him out. And she's like, fine. But I will give Shinji this. Now, Asuka is like, oh, you didn't send him out for me. Oh, yeah. So that, oh God, angel now. She said, what? You didn't send him out for me. Oh, shit. Oh, Asuka. I missed that. Oh, that's awful. That they care more for REI. Oh, that's brutal. That Asuka's like, you didn't bother when I was in trouble, but now that REI's in trouble, you care a lot. It's like, oh, shit. So Shinji. We'll put Shinji down here. So Shinji, at the start, is very gung-ho to save REI. I feel like Shinji, if we're talking about him getting like resurrected from the goop and brought back, he's been in a decent place. He's not depressed like Asuka, but damn, that line, I didn't hit me during the reaction, but oof. But he goes up there and they give him an order about what to do, and he has the gun and everything. He gets out of there and like goes forward. And they're like, deploy your AT field and rescue REI immediately. And Shinji's like, yep, I can do this. We got this. We're fine. And that's when she says Ikari, where REI's like, and it's like the suit and everything, it's all like meshed together. Ugh. But she knows that Shinji's there, and then the angel goes to attack him too. And God, the animation on this. Like, it breaks his gun, it just like instantly breaks it up, and then he grabs it, of course, to keep it from attacking him, and then it starts to go into his hand the same way. And I'm sorry, that one shot of Shinji is really good. Like the shot of him like looking down at it and the lighting of it is a really good shot. He looks so older and mature there. It's probably one of my favorite Shinji shots, honestly, in this whole series, is him looking down at and Misato's like, attack it with the prog knife, which he goes to get, and he stabs the angel, and the angel shoots out blood. Like the angel bleeds. I'll make note. The angel bleeds. But it is connected. It is connected to the Eva at this point. Because REI can feel that pain too. She feels when it gets stabbed. And that scream. God, that scream. Oh, that was so gross. And she's like, it hurts. And I'm sorry, but the little tiny, yeah, where she says it hurts, Ikari. And there's little tiny rays popping up on his hand. Mm-mm. Nope. I was like, that should have been a sign that we were going to see the clones later, because the little tiny rays start popping up on his hands. That'd be the freakiest shit. I'd be like, and we're done. But it hurts Ikari. And then it like from the angel, and that's like the REI from his dream. Oh, that, And it goes like towards him. But it has like, its eyes are black at first, but then when it blinks, its eyes turn like rays. So is REI, I'm going to just put this here because we may find out later on when we get to read that dialogue. Is REI created from an angel? Was she created from that? We're going to go back to that because I think she was. She's like, this is my heart wanting to become one with Ikari. No, that's the angel wanting to do it, because she realizes, she's like, no. Because, yeah, the angel goes to, like, touch him and, like, grabs a hold of him. Like, it's going to, like, take him over. And she says no. So I'm like, I love that REI gets that. She gets that resolve where she's like, no, this is what the angel wants, but that's not going to happen. So the angel seemingly wants to merge with humanity or Adam or something. It wants to merge with something. It's soulless and it wants to get a soul. It wants to gain something. So it's trying to do anything. So if it can absorb REI and Shinji together, it's going to try to do that. So that all makes sense. But REI's like, no. And she expands, like the AT field, like all starts to burst. It says the AT field has been reversed. It will be eroded away at once, and she's going to try to contain the angel inside of her. Like, it just all of this, like, there's a hand, there's a claw, there's, like, all this stuff. It's like Akira. It just, like, bursts out from the back, and it all comes back inside. Ugh. And it all comes back inside of her, including, and then it drags it away and saves Shinji from the angel. And then it all just starts, like, hemorrhaging from within. and just becoming this big mass. It's just like Akira. It's the grossest thing. Like she's just absorbing everything. The field's reached its limit. The core can't maintain it. And she's like, Rei, get out of there. And Rei goes to evacuate. But she's like, no, if I go, the AT field will disappear. So I can't do that. Like, I've got to go down with the ship. And she activates the dummy plug. And then Risala's like, are you meaning to die? And it just all sucks up in there. But what it turns into, the core is collapsing. And then she looks around and it's like she almost, here's the thing. When she looks over, I wanted to get that shot of Rei because it's literally like the prettiest Rei's ever looked. Is that she's crying and that's when she sees Gendo. Like the most angelic, best look of Gendo possible. I'm like, Gendo has never looked that soft ever. But her final vision is Gendo. So I'm like, is Rei created from like an angel and Yui? Was Yui an angel and an angel like fused together and that became Rei? We're gonna get answers, I know, and this end of this episode is gonna talk more about it, but I'm like, for her to have that final vision of glassesless Gendo from the past, and that be her final thought, and her like crying, like seeing that and shedding those tears, and then she like reaches up for him, like grabbing after Gendo, and the Eva transforms, like it just like manifests itself with the halo into that form of her, like it just manifests like that. Like what the fudge? Like, that's what the angel, that was the contact the angel wanted, was that contact, that soul, and then it became this form, and then just blew up from there. Just blew up, part of the city, no big deal. Oh my gosh. And everybody's just like, well, shit. And they just couldn't do anything. And so we had the explosion, and I wanted to see with the explosion what it was, but that was Shinji's. Yeah, so the Eva and the explosion was Shinji's. And this is the crazy thing. Shinji's reaction to her potentially dying is that he's just in shock. He's like, what? Because at this point, at this point of the episode, we're 12 minutes in. We're not even halfway through the episode. And Rei could have died. What? And you're just like, I guess it doesn't feel real. It feels like it feels like Kaji's death was led up to, and you knew it was coming. You just didn't know how or when, but you could feel it. It was ominous. It felt like it was happening. I have felt Misato and Akagi have had death flags on them from the start. Akagi, the mom's death, was surprising and shocking, but it was like, oh, you knew something bad was going to happen. You were just waiting for it to pop. But in this show, every episode where we faced an angel, it's all been like, don't worry, things will blow up, but we'll be okay. And here in this episode, you're just like, well, did Rei die? Oh, no. And Shinji's just in a state of shock. Like, it's not the reaction that I was expecting from Shinji if Rei had died. I was thinking going into this show, okay, if Rei or Asuka die, because that could happen, it's Anno, it's the series, how will Shinji, I imagine Shinji like going off the edge and like going into berserker mode and losing it and just going insane, but he doesn't. He just is like, what can you do, right? And so the target's destroyed. It's just like, no, everything is just completely gone at this time. And the thing that gets me about Misato is our girl, Misato, her just shaking in anger and sorrow, like her just shaking in fury, like that shot of her with like her hands shaking beside her. Oh, because you don't get to see her face, but the fact that she is so emotional in this moment and everyone around her is just so clinical. They're like, oh, at this time, the operation is officially over. Change our status to class 1 alert. Like, roger that. Switch immediately to condition yellow. And what about the OO status? Ejection of the entry plug has not been confirmed. Like, everything is just, it's so clean and clinical. And she's like, this girl could be dead. This girl that I care about. And, like, I love how distorted her arms almost are. Like, her arms are, like, down in an unhinged angle. Hurry the operation for the survivor. If there is one, that is. Like, oh, and if there is one that is, God, that line. I want to get that right picture of her if I can. And see if I can do that. Oh, that shot of Misato is so damn good. But that line from Akagi where she says, if there is a survivor. And that's when Misato turns around and is like, bitch, did you really? And she's not looking. You don't see her face. Because the relationship between Akagi and Misato has been so interesting in this series. It's been so interesting. And we've talked about it in the comments kind of on and off with everybody. But it's funny because Akagi and Misato, Ritsuko and Misato, they're framed in episode 21 like they became like unexpected, unlikely friends. Like they have a pretty good friendship. And as the series goes on, you can tell that it's almost funny. Both Ritsuko and Misato, because of their backgrounds, their parents have both had a hand in nerve. But Misato, I feel like Misato's father was more removed than Dr. Akagi. So Misato is therefore a little bit more removed. Whereas Ritsuko is in the thick of it because her mom was in the thick of it. So I feel like as time has gone on, they've been in nerve for so long, they've slowly they're still really close friends, but they've kind of drifted into different parts of the mainframe. And you can tell that it's made there be a tension here that wasn't there before. And so I found especially in the last couple episodes, the tension with their friendship has been interesting because Misato knows that Akagi knows more than she's letting on. And I think Akagi knows that Misato knows more than she's letting on. And so they both have been kind of at each other's throats quietly, trying not to oust the other. Because if they oust the other, somebody may have to die. And that means you may have to kill your friend. And who wants to do that in this series, right? So, God, that shot, though. And so then, yeah, Title 2, Ray 3. Why not? But yeah. So they go to, it just shows like the whole new crater has been made, another lake, right? In Tokyo 3, another crater made from where that angel was destroyed. No antibiotic substance from the 16th angel has been found thus far. So no antibiotic substance. That's interesting. They have to keep out. I love that Nerve had the budget to make little personalized keep out signs because it literally is a keep out sign with the Nerve logo in the middle. That they've had to make so many keep out signs that they've just attached their own logo to it. Interesting. And so they have the hazmat suit and they found the entry plug. Level C traces are spreading towards the southwest. We'll continue searching. So try to make sure it doesn't contaminate anything. So there's the plug. Oh, and then they say, oh, God. You can see a hand. Oh. You can see the hand inside the entry plug. You can see Ray's hand like inside of it. Oh, my God. Dr. Akagi. Yeah, I'm going to take a picture of that. You can totally see it's Ray's bloody hand. Oh. And her just looking. What happened here will be classified as top secret. So yeah, Ray kicked the bucket. So Akagi doing the top secret is Ray's death. Huh. Oh, buddy. So, okay, take back the plug and dispose of everything else. Okay. So we have the third angel. So third and fourth angel. We had a list of angels. So going back over here, we have SEELE talking about we have defeated up through the 16th angel. So 16th angel defeated. And I wanted to go ahead and get on there. So we have the third and the fourth. Yep. Shamshiel. So I'm going to put down the names that they give us here. They give us old Shamshiel again. Shamshiel. The 5th angel. Ramiel, our best girl. The 6th angel. Israfel, 7th angel. 8th angel. 9th angel. We got names on the newest angels. I want to get that. Matriel. Matriel is the 9th angel. I think we got Matriel. Yeah, Matriel was the 9th. We haven't got names on the new angels, so I wanted to make sure to get those. The 10th angel. Yep. And then Sahaquiel, the 11th angel. Urorel. Okay, so the 11th angel was Uroel. Interesting, Uroel. That leaves only one angel described by the Sea's Dead Sea Scrolls. So there's one angel left. Oh, just one! Just one left! Only one angel left, and we only have 3 episodes to go in the series. Convenient. Okay, and the 12th angel was... What was that one? The 12th angel was called... Liliel. Liliel. Okay. So the 12th was Liliel. Okay. So we've got that one. The 13th angel, Baradiel. Okay. So 13th was Baradiel. Okay. 14th was that creepy one, the Zeruel. Okay, so 14th, the water bearer one was Zeruel. Zeruel. The 15th, which was the sky one, is Ariel. That makes sense. 15th was Ariel. And then the 16th angel, which is the halo, Armisael. Okay. Armisael. So the Dead Sea Scrolls have only predicted 17 angels. Interesting. Now, I'm assuming that's counting, is that not counting is Urorel the one that was the bacterial one that they said didn't exist? I guess they gave it a name anyway. They said the promised time is near. Our journey has been long and the sacrifices have been great. So they've been building up to this moment. They've been basically they needed to defeat all the angels. So there's basically 17 angels. And they've known about this. They've known about all these angel attacks and everything. Okay. And saying that indeed first the Lance of Longinus, that was a sacrifice. Now the loss of the OO unit. And we have more than enough reasons to relieve Ikari of his command. So it seems like they are desperate for any reason to scapegoat Ikari and be like, let's get him out of here. He sacrificed the Lance of Longinus. We've lost the OO unit. We still have one more angel to face. So Gendo's wanting to go off script. Why? Why at this point? You've got one angel left to fight. What's the deal? And they say that man is smart enough to know the significance of why we allowed Fuyutsuki to return safely. So something is up with Fuyutsuki. Why we allowed Fuyutsuki to return safely. So something is up with Fuyu-chan. Fuyu-chan and his connection with SEELE. There's a mystery there. Somehow Fuyutsuki is connected to all this and Gendo knows about it. What? Why we allowed him to return safely? We need another human sacrifice to counter Ikari. What? So they are asking for a human sacrifice to counter Gendo. Now, this is the thing. That may not be Gendo they're talking about. They said we need another human sacrifice to counter Ikari. That could mean Yui. That does not have to mean Gendo. So maybe they're talking about a human sacrifice to counter Yui if Yui is tied to these Evas and these angels. I feel like everything that is being set up in this episode, the next 3 episodes are going to delve more into, and maybe End of Evangelion is going to delve into. So I'm speculating, but I'm holding my breath being like, okay, this series knows that we, the audience, we were talking about this in the comments. I think Jimmy Russell was bringing this up, that this series, it makes you feel you are smart as an audience member. It makes you feel like a smart audience member because it does not dumb things down. It doesn't explain things to you in a way that you feel like, oh, well, here's the exposition. No, if you're just following along with this show and you think it's a weird, trippy sci-fi, you can follow along with it and be like, well, that was weird, but I get what's going on. But it's all this little stuff under the surface. And this show has expertly given you bits and pieces as we go, and it starts to connect it as we go. And then suddenly you'll be sitting there going, oh, this all makes sense now because X, Y, and Z connect. So there are things posited in this episode that I'm like, okay, it's going to come back in the next 3. I just got to be patient, which is why I'm like, just don't spoil me. If I don't figure it out in this episode, it may come to me in the next episode. So, but yeah, a human sacrifice. We need someone who knows the truth. So they want somebody to know the truth, and that's Ritsuko. She gets sacrificed. Okay. And then we cut to her and the cats. And it's almost like she knows. God, I love that image of her. Ritsuko is animated so beautifully. The people are animated. I don't know which studio directed this episode. This episode's batshit crazy and bonkers, but the animation and some of the shots and the way they're framed are gorgeous. They're so beautiful. I'm like, what is this? It's great. But I'm like, you didn't have to go this hard, show. And then she brings up on the screen in her pixelated thing, there's a picture of Gendo and Akagi and Yui. Or no, that's her. That's her in the picture. It's Gendo and Akagi and her. I love it. I love it. So I want to get that picture of her where she's just staring at that photo. Like she knows what's going to happen. But, and her staring at Gendo. So I'm like, okay. I love the composition of that scene. So good. So yeah, so did Akagi like Gendo? Did she? Did Akagi like Gendo like her mom did? That is a question. Why are all these people liking Gendo? He's the least attractive guy in the series. I would date Fuyu-chan in a heartbeat before I date Gendo, and he's like 60. So I'm like, Gendo is like, no. Gendo is an absolute no. Gendo's the creepy, Gendo's that creepy boyfriend of your friend that you're like, you could do better. That's what Gendo is. It's like, maybe you should avoid him. No. Yeah, I'm just like, why do all these people like Gendo? No, he's not even that cute. Shinji at least got some looks from Yui, maybe. Again, we go back to that red light. The light in the ceiling is a constant fixture in this series, connecting Shinji. And we're back to the same track over and over again. Except you can hear it now. He just has it playing. You can actually hear the track playing now. I should have paid more attention. I'm going to have to go back and re-listen to it. Actually, I'm going to listen to it right now and just edit this out. So give me just a second. Oh, so it's literally just a track. It's just a song. I thought this whole time that those tracks would be like something creepy, like a creepy like voice playing something over and over again to him. No, it's just a song. But yeah, so Misato comes in and he's just sitting with his head against the wall and with the earbuds and everything. And he says the tears won't come. He can't, it's like, I feel sad, but the tears won't come. Again, I love the way that this shot is designed, that we see it from overhead and we see Misato, who clearly understands what he feels like. And it's such a contrast, right? There's a big contrast there because Misato, mourned Kaji, who she was super attracted to and loved, and like viscerally was like exhausted with emotion. And Shinji's like, I can't cry. I can't form tears. The tears won't come, even though he's sad. And I wonder too if when they were connected, Shinji and Rei were connected, if maybe she was able to cry because they were connected and she was able to like tap into some of Shinji's emotions, and that's how she was able to cry, and she took that from him and now he can't do it. If that was it, or if it's because of the process of him being reborn through the primordial soup, or if he's just in a state of shock. And that's so true. I like I said at the beginning of this discussion, I like that this episode talks about the different ways in which we grieve. And for Asuka, it's isolation, it's distraction. A lot of it for Asuka is distraction as a form of grief. For Shinji, it's isolation. And for Misato, it's isolation, but it's also like just letting all that emotion pour out of you. But, you know, some people, if you lose someone, sometimes you can't cry. Like, there's been family members die that I was like, you just don't feel it. And then it may suddenly come at once, but other than that, you just kind of like, you're just in a state of shock and you don't know what to do. Right? And then Misato's like, this is all I can do for you right now. And she reaches to grab his hand. And I thought that was a good gesture on her part, but Shinji he's not ready for that. And he says to stop it. And he just withdraws, right? And that's when she tells him that she's sorry. That he withdraws away. He can't do it. And I wonder if there's a part of Shinji that's like, if he let Misato try to comfort him, that it would be too much. But then there's another part of me that I feel like Shinji feels guilty because he's like, I saw Misato crying, a few weeks ago and was really upset. And I was too much of a coward to come and comfort her. And now she's trying to comfort me. He's like, if I accept that from her, what does that make me? So I feel like Shinji, he feels maybe that he's not worthy of Misato's comfort or her consoling. He doesn't feel like he's worthy of it, maybe. But and Misato's like, he must be feeling lonely. Which again, that's such a contradiction because it's just like with the angel talking to Rei. When you say you're lonely, you think that means you want company, but it could mean that you're not capable of sustaining company. That could be the thing of it, is that the idea of loneliness in this episode isn't necessarily that you want to be alone or that you can't find anybody to be with, but it's that you can't sustain the idea of having that person in your proximity. And that's the tragic irony of it, is that you want someone there, but you can't sustain it. It's like, But yeah, her saying he must be feeling lonely. And she wonders if he's afraid of women. And she says, no, he's afraid of being intimate. And it's like, no, that's not it. And then she's like, no, it's me. Because she goes to Pin Pin and asks the same thing. She's like, Pin Pin, come here. And Pin Pin's just like, no, I don't want. Pin Pin's even sad. And she says, I see, it doesn't matter who. I'm the one who's lonely. Yeah, so Misato, she concludes that she is lonely. She tries to justify why Shinji's not responding to her. And she's like, well, is he afraid of intimacy? Is he afraid of women? And it's like, no, that's not it. He's grieving in his own way. She's the one that wants to reach out and have someone comfort her. She's the one that needs comforting. And nobody else around her is wanting that at the moment. Shinji doesn't want anybody around him. He's just trying to grieve in his own way. Asuka's grieving in her own way. And Misato wants someone there to grieve with her, but she just can't have it. So that's why she's lonely. And so then we cut back to old Gendo looking up at the tube at Rei. And it says on there, it says, caution, Rei. The tube says Rei. How dare it? It gets a close-up on it now. Look at that. Maybe it had it before and I just didn't notice it. Oh. So this part here, where Fuyu-chan. Fuyu. He says that Rei is a product of his despair. A product of my despair. And at the same time, she is the vessel of your hope, even now. Okay. Vessel of your hope. So Rei is Gendo's savior and Fuyu-chan's despair. What? That's so interesting. I'm like, it has to be tied to Yui somehow. Rei is tied to Yui, there's no question. Or tied to an angel and Yui, or all of the above, or an Eva, everything. But for Fuyu to say she's the product of his despair, what did he do? So clearly Fuyu-chan has had a hand in helping to create Rei. But what exactly is she and what's going on? And Gendo thinks she's the hope. Okay. In the end, it was unreasonable to expect you to forget. And so we see the tube. So what we can't see is lining the tube in that room that's in pitch darkness are all of the other Reis just waiting to go in that tube. So, oh my gosh. So the Rei that we saw in the tube wasn't the original Rei we saw in this series. What? Because Rei has been a little different each time. And I feel like, God, now I feel like if I go back and watch, it'll be like, okay, well, which Rei is which? Because I feel like they said, what is this, the third Rei? So I feel like that Rei has been a little bit different throughout this series. Like, this second Rei that came up was like the one that was more like resolved and like, I'm not a puppet, versus the Rei at the very beginning of the series. God, so it could have been she didn't even have character development. It was a totally different Rei. What? But yeah, so Fuyu has had a hand in creating her. And then it was unreasonable for you to forget. Like, what the fudge? I'm so excited to learn more about this. I want to know more about this whole cloning business. Maybe I don't. But, So yeah, and then that's when we go back to... I also want to make note that Misato has a skateboard. And like the most masculine room for, for defining and subverting gender expectations. There's even like there's a box of tissues on the ground and skateboard and all this. But the phone ringing. Okay. And she answers. Like, what did you say? And so then we do Dr. Godai of the Internal Medicine 1, Dr. Godai at the cranial unit. Oh, Dr. Godai needs to get a raise because he's bringing characters back from the dead. Give this guy a bonus. So yeah, Rei, and it's that hospital. It's that creepy hospital. And her there with the injuries. Ayanami. And she has similar injuries from the very first time we met her. Oh. So we have neurosurgery, surgery 3, diagnostic radiology, x-ray, and second floor ward. Her injuries are like literally the same as they were at the start of the series. What? So Rei, oh my God. So how many Reis have they gone through? We say the third, right? So Rei, her injuries are like episode 1. With the head wrap, with the arm. It's like they just took her from episode 1 and recreated her. And they're like, yeah, sure. She just got injured. She's fine. But yeah. So Shinji, he's like, I'm glad that you're okay. And he's like, I guess my dad's not here. And then she's like, thank you. And he says, thank you for saving me. And she says, what do you mean? So yeah, this isn't the same Rei. She's like, what do you mean? He's like, you sacrificed the OO unit to save me. And she was like, oh, I see. So I saved you. Don't you remember? I just don't know. Yeah, and it all makes sense now because she really doesn't know. Because she's just a shell. Like with the soul that just keeps passing on from body to body. So rewatching this series would be really good because then you have the poem and what all that could mean, and then you have the idea of Rei, the woman that never bleeds. Yeah. Okay. Because I think I'm probably the third one. And that's such so she's the third one. Oh my God. So Rei has at least died once before. Oh my gosh. Wow. And then you go back to this room 402, and everything, it mirrors, her apartment mirrors that nasty lab that she was created in. It's all a simulation. It's all like her revealing the Band-Aids. Yeah. So at this point where she pulls the Band-Aids off and lets the Band-Aids slip out, there's nothing wrong with her. Everything's perfectly fine. Oh my gosh. So that does beg the question of when REI had the bloody pillowcase and the bloody bandages, if she was really injured during that, and if a new REI hadn't taken over since then. I don't know. But oh my god. So yeah, no, she's fine. Because this is a new REI. And she's just a hollow shell. But I like that as she looks over at the glasses of Gendo. Oh, that shot of her looking at Gendo's glasses, that may be the thumbnail. That may be the thumbnail, because that shady look is so good. It's like we have all the pills that she takes. Like she takes the medicine, she's looking down at the glasses, and her just like cracking the glasses a little bit more and then easing off and letting them go. Oh, so the idea, the concept though, that these vessels gain souls, right? Because yeah, Akagi is trying to say that they're just vessels, they don't have souls except for but REI does. But like the very first REI was all about being super, super obedient. And then you had this second REI that got resolved and was all about like having purpose and finding relationship with Shinji and them. And then this REI may go off the deep end because she's like sitting there crushing Gendo's glasses. Ooh. And she just lets it go. She like relieves up the tension. And then she's crying. These are tears. This should be the first time I've seen them, but it feels like it isn't the first time. Oh my god, am I crying? Oh my god, why am I crying? Ah! Oh my gosh, it's all getting freaky. It's getting freaky. So yeah, the first child will be maintained in her current condition. Well, good for you, Gendo. Okay, in her current condition, and then there's no need for new restrictions. So restrictions, the same go for the second and third. There's no need. They'll only need to be watched. So there's this concept of restrictions. Okay. The idea of restrictions gets brought up. And there's something more to that, right? It's not just... Because at first, on the surface level, it would seem like, oh, well, they're like clearances. Like, okay, there's certain restrictions. Like, Shinji, you can't go here. You can't go to building A, B, and C. And Ritsuko will bring that up later. You can't go to building A, B, and C. You don't get permission to go. But is there something psychological with that? Like, is there psychological restriction placed on Asuka, Shinji, and REI? Or is it literally just physical, like they're on house arrest? They can't go anywhere. It could be either one. And then, yeah, Fuyu-chan is like, Chairman Keel and the rest will raise a fuss when they learn that REI is alive. Oh, so they all expected her to be dead. They're like, how can this be? Fuyu-chan is getting slowly more and more fed up, which is interesting. I've offered something else to SEELE's old men. We don't need to worry. So, God, again, the sexualization in this episode of REI and Ritsuko is interesting to me. Because throughout this episode, like Misato and Asuka kind of have a similarity in that they put themselves out there. Or they have put themselves out there. Like Misato had like the picture with the cleavage and the arrows to it that she sent Shinji back in episode 1. Like that was right from the start. It's been a joke that she's like, tune in for more fan service next episode. Like that's been the whole thing with Misato. And Asuka has used sexuality as a means as well. Like her trying to seduce Kaji, like things like that. But with REI and Akagi, it's always been like any type of nudity with them or any type of like something that would seem sexual has been utterly devoid of it. There's not been any sexualization. Like even like anytime REI has been naked, it's just been like very clinical. And the same thing here with I get like Game of Thrones Cersei vibes with Akagi here, where she's like, instead of walking the streets naked, she's stuck in front of SEELE. And they're like, we would like things to proceed smoothly. We do not wish to subject you to any more degradation and suffering. I'm like, why does she have to stand in front of you naked to be questioned? Why? Why did she have to do that? Why couldn't you question her with her clothes on? You don't question Gendo naked. I know nobody wants to see it, but you don't do it. And she says, I do not feel humiliated whatsoever. Which I'm sure is a lie. You're like a strong-willed woman. I can understand why Ikari would want you by his side. But the person who handed us to you is none other than Ikari. And she's like, oh. He refused to hand over the pilot of Unit 00 for questioning, and he sent you as a substitute. And she's like, I was sent in place of REI. And so in that case, you can kind of see shades of Ritsuko with Asuka, because Ritsuko is like, okay, I was sent in place. He cares more about REI than me. Kind of like what Asuka dealt with when Shinji was sent in to protect REI. She's like, oh, he cares more about REI than me. So there's that connection too. There's that between them. But the idea that she willingly like put herself out there to be questioned naked in front of these creepy men, if SEELE, and Gendo's the one that offered her up so easily, she's just like, wow, okay. At least you wear earrings. And then don't bother me, I'm working. And so we go back. So apparently at some point, if you just replay the voicemail over and over again, it'll unlock a secret voicemail that is Kaji's other voicemail that's going to give you information. Or we as the audience never listened. But at the very beginning of the episode, when she played the whole voicemail through, it did shut off. So I guess if you just keep listening to the voicemail over and over again, eventually a second one will manifest. This is the part of the truth that you wanted. I devised 36 other ways to send it to you. I wonder if 36 is significant. But you probably won't get them. The only definite one is this capsule. This is everything I have to offer. Do with it as you see fit. The password is our very first memory together. I want to know what that is. Bye. Take care. I want to know what that memory is. The phone that won't ring. I won't let it irritate me anymore. So she's like, this is it. She's like, fine. She's like, if you won't call me, it's okay. And then, God, the idea of the capsule next to the gun and the thing, like she knows what she has to do. I've accepted your feelings. So yeah, Misato, he said move forward without hesitation. And she's like, fine. So she accepted Kaji's feelings. It's like she reached the acceptance stage of grief, Misato did. And I like that there is a parallel there, not only with Akagi and Asuka in the last scene with Gendo, but also in this scene with Misato and Asuka, because the phone that won't ring, you could tie that to Asuka trying to call Kaji and he won't pick up, and she just can't let it go. She can't accept the fact that he's not calling. And in this episode, Misato's like, no, I accept it. You're dead. It's over. The phone's not going to ring anymore from you. I've accepted your feelings. You loved me. I can move on. Like, she's like, I'm moving forward. Like, she's reached that stage of grief. And so then again, we have Akagi going down the escalator alone. And then the SEELE. This is interesting. So SEELE is saying, are we certain we did the right thing with Dr. Akagi? And like, she's different from Futsuki. So they SEELE saying that Akagi is not Fuyu-chan. What the fudge is up with Fuyu-chan? Now I'm like, if this wouldn't have taken so long, I'd watch episode 24 now, but I'm not going to. Nope. So what? I'm like, so she's different from Futsuki. Okay. Returning her is in our best interest. So they question whether Fuyu-chan going back safely was a good thing or not. And here they're saying that with Akagi, it is a good thing because she's going to do something that's in their best interest. She has rendered distinguishing service to the Eva series. And her eyebrow twitching like she's contemplating what to do, and she's like she almost seems like she's gonna cry. Like she's just like thinking it over. She's rendered distinguishing service to the Eva series. She can be of some use to us. Meaning that they're basically saying that she is tied to the Evas. And that SEELE can use her. Yeah, and they're kind of like pinning the scientist part of her as to helping them because they're like, I feel like Fuyu-chan he is a scientist, but he's very empathetic. He's very an empath. He's very emotional. She has dedicated her whole life to not being that. Her mom was emotional. She doesn't like it. She's dedicated herself to being a scientist. And SEELE is like, yeah, Akagi is a scientist, so she'll help us because she knows it's for the betterment of science. She's not going to let her emotions get involved. And she, as they're saying this, her eyes are just like twitching like she's about to cry. And it's like, it's such a good scene. Like the animation's so good here. Indeed, for the sake of mankind's future. And that's when she looks up. So SEELE is working for the sake of... So SEELE is for the sake of mankind's future. There are 8 Evas prepared. Okay. 8 Evas prepared. And then, which leaves 4 more. Okay. Well, that makes me think of 12. That makes me think of the 12 disciples of Jesus is what that makes me think of. But, so 8 Evas prepared. I thought we had... are they not counting the OO unit, the O1 and the O2? Are they talking about 8 different ones? The annihilation of New Tokyo 3 will be a good material in which to advance our plans. So they're planning on destroying the city anyway. This SEELE comes out in the 11th hour and they're like, surprising no one. We've been the bad guys all along. Maybe, I don't know, that they're going to destroy Tokyo 3 for their plans. That's the crazy part about all of this. The crazy part at this point in the series is I don't know who is working for the betterment of mankind. Because you have SEELE, who are talking about creating all these Evas to potentially control angels or defeat them. And they're talking about destroying entire cities of people, but it's to advance their plans. But at the same time, so you want to think that they're the bad guys, but then you have Gendo, who is shady as hell, and we don't know his plans. And I'm like, is he trying to help humanity? Like, is there even a good guy in this scenario, or is everybody just messed up? I'm like, who... It's kind of like pick your poison. Which is going to be better for mankind? Gendo and Nerve? Or SEELE? Or neither? It's crazy because the series does not give you a concrete protagonist and antagonist. It doesn't give you that. It makes you question who is better in this scenario, but it does not answer that question for you. And then hurry up their completion. That will be our promised day. So whenever they complete the Evas, okay. But I'm like, but on the other hand, they need pilots for the Evas, or are they planning to use Gendo's dummy plugs, which are not so dummy plugs anymore. And so I like this, like, just listen to me. I've released the restraints placed on you. You should be able to go outside now. Okay, so she was luring Shinji down there. Okay. So she says that Ritsuko lifted restraints and he can go out now. Which, on the surface, that just seems simple. Like, they were under house arrest and she's like, you can leave now because they've been able to leave this whole time without someone saying your restraints are lifted. But there's just something kind of psychological and weird to it. But anyway, Central Dogma, level 18. Level 19. Going on down. Terminal Dogma, level 1. Sector 2. And she tries to open up and it doesn't work. And that's when... And she's surprised. And that's when it's surprising that she finds Misato there. So Akagi already knew Shinji was coming. And Shinji was there with her. But Misato is the surprise. It's Kaji's handiwork, isn't it? You're going to let me see the secret in there with my own eyes. And she's like, fine, but then he's coming too. Oh, and Misato's like, damn it, you involve, how dare you? She's like, fine. And so then, yeah, they go down to the catacombs in this elevator, in like the most awkward elevator. This series, it's elevator scenes. And then they get to the artificial laboratory. Annex number 3. Number 3, y'all. We had to do it. We just had to do it. So, okay, we have all these things on the wall here. There's a formula. There's, again, we talked about upstairs. There was a number like D6 and D5 for the wings. On the wall there is 655. And then there's numbers 22, 20, 50, 82. So I'm sure those all have like some Easter egg significance. But then there's the bed. There's the tray. There's all this equipment. There's a curtain. And there's pills. It's all that way. There's, oh God, like stuff on the ceiling. And then I like that Shinji and Misato are like, just like, they don't look surprised. I think that they're both like just dead inside at this point. They're so like in shock and like, what the heck's going on? They're just like, at this point, we've seen everything. What else can you throw at us, Akagi? And he says, this looks like Ayanami's room. And she's like, this is Rei Ayanami's room. At that point, this is where she was born and raised. Nope. I was like, So yeah. So there's a thing on the wall that says strangeness, DSSM, and then top and bottom, TID2. Yep. So yeah, strangeness indeed. This is where she was born. The water and light that form Rei's unconscious must have a strong impression of this place. So yeah, like the basically the cellular junk inside her head must recognize this looks like her room and tries to simulate it. And that explains now why she doesn't get the mail, why she doesn't do like normal functions, because she's not human. She's just a clone. She's just a shell. She doesn't do any like functions like that. She's not inept to live. Okay. And then Misato's like, this is not what I came here to see. She's like, I know, Misato. I like that even during this thing, Misato says Miss Akagi or Dr. Akagi, and Ritsuko says Misato. Like there's that difference between their levels of friendship and like how they view each other in these moments. It's good stuff. So yeah, we have the camera. Oh my God. Just the pit of angels. Evas, not even angels. So there's just so many of them. There's like, and they're all like little bird skeletons. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And they all have the things with eyes. The very first ones. They're the failures. They were scrapped 10 years ago. A graveyard for Evas. It's just a garbage dump. Oh, like the fact that they've had so many Evas they've tried to make. That's... So we find out that the experiments were dumped. The experiments were dumped in this graveyard. And they said 10 starting 10 years ago, which would have been around the time that Yui died. So we can assume they were doing all these experiments for years, for like 4 years, trying to create Evas. And then she says, this is where your mother disappeared. You may not remember it, but I believe you were also watching. Oh my God, the very moment your mother vanished. And Shinji's like, excuse me? So we get the idea that Yui vanished. Not necessarily died. Not necessarily died. Not necessarily became an Eva or merged with it, but just vanished. That's all she says, is vanished. And Shinji's like, excuse me? And I like that Misato's like, don't bring this up. Like, she's got the gun. She's like, Ritsuko. And that's when she used Ritsuko instead of Dr. Akagi. She's like, we didn't come here for you to traumatize this kid. And Ritsuko, her expression like that, just like the smile on her face, it's so creepy. And she's like, fine, you want to see what's in the basement? Let's go. You thought Adam was freaky. Let's get into the real shit. This is the source of the dummy plugs. Oh my God, I'll show you the truth. And she turns on the dummy plug main plant. And oh my God, it says REI 4, REI 5, REI 6, REI through 14. Yep. So, yep. There is at least REI number 4 through 14. Oh my God. So the dummy plugs. So if you had 2 dummy plugs so far, you had the dummy plug for the 00 unit, you had the dummy plug for the 01 unit. That's why there's only 2 dummy plugs. That's why Asuka's not compatible, because REI was in the 01 unit and the 00 unit. Those are the 2 that REI is synced with, that the dummy plugs work for. Asuka's, this third REI could sync with Asuka's to make another dummy plug, but we've not got there yet. So are they planning to use all these fake REIs to go with those other 8 Evas in order to make dummy plugs for them so that they can control them? Would that be it? That would make sense. Oh, I love just like the everything gets red and there's just REIs everywhere. God, and I just love the image of Shinji and Misato being like, the fudge. REI Ayanami. Oh, and them all looking. Oh, and Shinji's like, shit. Yep. Oh my God, I want to get a picture of the creepy REIs. Oof. Okay. Well, that's not creepy at all. Nope. She's like, you're saying the Eva's dummy plugs, they're the part that becomes the core of the dummy system. This is the manufacturing plant for it. And I just love the softness on Akagi, how they animate her. She looks so soft. It's like she just like, this is her science, like being brought, like just here's the truth of it all. So, okay. So the REI clones are at the core of the dummy plug. That explains why in all of the visions that Shinji was having back when the dummy plug was used, so the dummy plug was inside the Eva unit, back when Shinji's was corrupted and the angel and stuff started to seep in. That's why he was connected to REI. Now, it still doesn't answer how he was connected to her at the beginning of the series when he just saw her standing there, like the vision of her. We still don't have an explanation for that yet, but it is making more sense now since Shinji's been in the 01 unit that probably has the dummy plug, that has the core of REI. It makes sense now why he's been connecting with her, because it has been her. It's just been the part of the version of her in the dummy plug. Okay, that's all making more sense. Yep. We still don't know about that first encounter, like back in the city, but just I've got a mental pin on it. I know eventually we'll probably connect back to it. And Masato's like, seriously? And yeah, all these REIs, they're just dummies. And they're also happy and smiling. They're nothing more than parts for REI. So REI is the soul, and these are just the vessels. So REI is the soul. Okay. Which kind of makes sense now in that one episode when Shinji saw like her in the petri dish. It's this scene here. It's seeing her like that. And the creepy smile she had connects to this here too. Okay. Man found God and in their joy tried to make him theirs. Okay, so there's the concept of man. He found God and was happy, and so he tried to make God theirs to keep. Okay. Tried to make God's theirs to keep. That's why there was divine retribution. Oh, okay. So that led to divine retribution. We'll go back through this after we get through this part here. 15 years ago. Oh my God, that's the second impact. Right? Talk about this. god they found had disappeared by then. Okay. And so then the god disappeared. Okay. Oh. And so, but then they tried to resurrect God on their own. Oh, okay. So then they tried to resurrect the god on their own. Okay. And that is when Adam came about. The result was Adam. Okay. Okay. And imitating God, they created people from Adam. Okay. And the people from Adam, okay, are the Evas. Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, it's all coming together. People, they're human. And saying, yes, they're human. The Evas don't intrinsically have souls. So the Evas are human. Okay, but no souls. Okay, they don't intrinsically have souls, but they have human souls embedded in them. Yeah, okay, so the one, clearly Yui is in one of them, yeah. They have human souls in them. Okay. They were all salvaged. The only vessel that contained a soul was REI. Okay. They were salvaged, all but REI, which is her. She was the only one born with a soul. And the chamber of Guff was empty, you see. Okay. She was the only one born this way. Okay, that chamber of Guff stuff is still interesting, but I'm sure these things here that look like REI have no souls. Oh, okay. So then these are just dummies of the original REI. Okay. They're just copies of the original REI. They're just vessels. That's why I'm going to destroy them, because I hate them. Okay. So they're just vessels, and then Akagi destroys the vessels. She came down here to destroy them. And so I want to read what that said there. Yep, Destrudo release. Destrudo release, the death drive. The death drive. It all connected out. Yes, okay. Oh my god. And then this is the creepiest shit. Like, just the water turning red and all of them, and just like this giant massacre. And then it all makes sense now why REI hates the color red. Ugh. And Misato's like, oh my god. She's like, do you know what you're just doing? What you're doing? And God, Akagi looks so damn good in this episode. I'm destroying them. They're not people. They're things shaped like people. Even though they're like creepily laughing this whole time. But I lost. Even to these things, I couldn't win. It's Asuka! That's Asuka! She's like Asuka. She lost to a puppet. The connections, like Ritsuko to Asuka, her saying she lost to these things. I couldn't win. That's exactly Asuka's thing about losing to a puppet, losing to REI. God, well, if Asuka knew all of this, she'd never let REI live it down. She was actually legitimately a puppet. Or maybe not. We'll talk about this in a second. I only needed to think of him, and I could endure any kind of humiliation. So, yeah, she was thinking about Gendo. That she turned to Gendo. And she's like, I could endure anything. I didn't care what happened to my body, but he. And I knew, too. I'm a fool. Oh my god, like mother, like daughter, we're both big fools. So she liked him as well. Damn it. y'all need to find another guy. The guy that has Zeke's voice actor, he's great. Go for him instead. We're both big fools. And Shinji's just like, everybody's horny on main for my dad. Oh, if you want to kill me, do it. No, I'd be happy if you do it. Misato's like, well, that would be foolish of you. Why would we want to kill you now? She's like, you could help us. Why would we want to do that? And then she just breaks down. Huh. The tragedy of the people possessed by the Evas. Yeah, so the idea of being possessed by the Evas. That getting all caught up in it, right? God, I love this. And yeah, Ritsuko just finally breaking down emotionally, just having a mental breakdown here. But that goes for me too. Oh, man! Oh, what? Oh, God. So it feels so good to get some answers. Obviously, there's like a million questions still, as one can see. But so basically, man discovered God, like found a form of what they perceived to be as God, and they were happy about it. And she says they wanted to make God theirs, which means they wanted to take control of God and use God's powers, which you don't do. And so because of that, you wanted to play God. You wanted to control God. Yeah, that didn't work. And there was divine retribution. Now the question is, was that divine retribution? I'm assuming that was the second impact. Still, what was the first impact? We don't know yet. Maybe we'll find out. We shall see. I don't want to be spoiled. But there was the second impact, which was the divine retribution. And then 15 years ago, God supposedly disappeared. And so they tried to resurrect the God. Now, here's the thing. Actually, the retribution could have been the first impact. The first impact 15 years ago could have been the first impact when God disappeared. And then they tried to resurrect God on their own, which was Adam, and that could have been the second impact. But regardless, they found some way to create this being that was similar to a human, kind of using the powers of God. And then they decided to create beings from it, which were the Evas. The idea that the Evas are human, humanoid, just without souls, is disgusting and creepy because they don't look human. They look like animalistic and weird, but they have human souls embedded in them. So I'm guessing at this point, when they figured out how to make the Evas, that the experiments that Yui and them were doing were to try to infuse those Eva units with some kind of human soul. And so that's what they ended up doing. And that's probably how Yui ended up getting absorbed. Now the question is, Yui getting absorbed by the Eva, did the product of that, was that REI? Was the product of that soul merging with the Eva? Was the product of Yui merging with an Eva what created REI? And that's what they've been building the clones off of? Because that would tie it up. It seemed like Fuyu-chan had a good relationship with Yui. Whether or not he was romantically interested in her or not, it seems like they were still friends. They still had a good relationship. So it would be his despair if the person he cared about ended up being the foundation for this cloning experiment to create these empty vessels to house this manufactured soul. I could see why Fuyu-chan wouldn't like that. So maybe it's tied to that. But I just have a feeling that REI is maybe a product of Yui and the Evas merging, and she's like a product of that. But REI was the only one created that had an actual soul, which that would make sense why Gendo called her REI, because he wanted to name his daughter REI, and if she was the only one they made that had a soul, he would want to name her what he wanted to name his own daughter. And he called her Ayanami to draw suspicion away from the fact that she was his creation. Okay, that makes sense. But then, yeah, apparently the REI that had the soul died, and so these have just been dummies this whole time. But that's interesting because they're suggesting that the actual REI had a soul, and then she died, and these are all just dummies. These are just carbon copies that don't have a soul. But that's funny because we've seen with the past two iterations of REI, they kind of do. They kind of do have a soul, or maybe they're questioning it. It depends on how you define what a soul is. I would argue that the second REI that sacrificed herself to save Shinji had a soul. But then that brings into question, did she have a soul because she originally had it, or when the angel merged with her, did that create it? But it seems like she had something before then, so it's interesting they call them empty vessels when the two Reis, or Rei that we've seen so far, whether it's been two versions of her or not, seems to have always had a soul, or there was something there. So, But yeah, so Akagi decides to destroy them. So maybe that was why SEELE let her go, because SEELE's like, she's going to destroy the other copies of Rei for us and do it for us and then screw everything up. I'm very curious how Gendo's going to react when he comes down to the basement and sees all his Reis are like in a bloody fish tank. I'm wondering how that's going to go over. I'm going to guess that's not going to go over good. I'm going to guess it's going to be a bad deal. I'm going to guess that everything, or I could be wrong. It could all be kittens and rainbows. Gendo will be fine. He'll turn on the lights, see a massive Shark Week style overhead fish tank, and just be totally chill with it. Won't overreact. I would be interested to see Gendo overreact. I would be interested to see Gendo have an emotional outburst, because he's never had one in this whole series. And if anything would give him an emotional outburst, it would be the fact that all those Reis were dead. Maybe. Although if that happens, death flags out for Akagi. Death flags out for Akagi now. I am glad by the end of this that Misato lowered her gun and was like, I'm not going to kill you because, nah. Like, no. At this point, Misato, I think, has realized that line that she said, she's like, people that are possessed by the Evas. She's like, that's the allure of it, right? The Evas are almost like, it's that temptation. That the Evas have been that temptation to play God. To be like, look at what we've created. Look at these powerful creations we have. And it's like you just get ensnared by them and trapped with them. And that's what's happened to every character in this series. And Misato calls herself out on it. And she's like, as Akagi's like having a nervous breakdown, she's like, that goes for me too. She's like, everyone on this board has been affected by the Evas and their power. Like Shinji and Rei and Asuka. Well, Rei's in a boat all her own. But Shinji and Asuka have tied their entire worth and existence to the Evas. Akagi has tied all of her work. She's like, I degraded myself. I made myself humiliated, but I did it for Gendo and the Evas. And then Misato's like, damn, even Kaji gave up his life because of the Evas, because he wanted to know the truth. Fuyu-chan, he's shrouded in mystery now, but he's caught up in the Evas. She's like, everyone here has been ensnared and possessed by the Evas, even me. And we're all suffering for it. Like, it's like divine punishment. Oh, I feel better. I feel a lot better going through this episode in detail and breaking it down. I feel a lot better. There wasn't as much psychological aspects. This episode was beautiful, and it felt like this episode, again, even in the 11th hour, feels like a setup episode for 24, 25, and 26. I feel as if episodes 16 through 18 were setting up for 19 through 21 and 22, and then I feel like this episode 23 is setting up the foundation to go into, like, we've addressed the heavy shit that's happening, and now we're getting ready to go into episodes 24, 25, and 26 to see how it all unravels. Yay. So yeah, oh my god. Great times. So that was really good. I'm curious to know down below what got cut from the director's cut into the TV version. That would be interesting, because yeah, with this episode, I guess I could see some shots, but so far in the Discord and the commentary, when we've talked about what's been cut, it's been weird things. I was happy to know that in the original TV version, that long-ass elevator scene in episode 22, they left it in. I was like, you bitches, you did it! I love it! You were so bold. It's a bold move, Cotton, but it paid off. So yeah, I'm curious to know down below what was not included in the director's cut from this episode. Like, what did they cut and what they leave in? Obviously, please no spoilers. We got 3 episodes left. It's all coming together, and I'm ready for it. I'm like hyped up. So if it wasn't like nearly midnight, I'd probably watch the next episode, but no. So yeah, I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. I hope you all enjoyed this reaction discussion, but yeah. Let's just hope that Asuka is in a better place alongside now Shinji and Rei, and now Shinji and Misato know the truth together alongside Akagi. How is this going to affect their loyalties with Gendo and Fuyu-chan, with Nerve, with Rei? How is Shinji going to act around Rei now that he knows that she's like a clone? How is Asuka? Is he going to tell Asuka? How is everybody going to find out? SEELE's talking about destroying Tokyo 3 to advance their plans and play God with these 8 EVA units. So it's just like, yeah, the temptation of that sin. They've created these EVAs. It all makes sense now. They've created something and they think that they can play God. Now it's too tempting. Like, it's just like a drug addiction at this point. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what's going to happen. I may regret these emotions, but I'm excited. So I hope you all are too. But in any case, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'll be back next week with episode 24 of Neon Genesis Evangelion. Bye.